The desert, a lonely area of landscape where little precipitation occurs and living conditions are hostile for plant and animal life. This Sunday, that will be especially true for Lions, as your Detroit football team visits Glendale, Arizona for a battle with the 2-0 Arizona Cardinals. With temperatures expected to climb up to the mid-100s this weekend, Matt Poop Trisha's hot seat won't be the only thing scorching. Can the winless Lions douse the Flames and notch their first win of the season? Or will it be loss number 12 in a row dating back to last season? It's a showdown to the death in the Wild Wild West, and we're here to preview it next on Detroit Sports Extreme.
Recorded from State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, this is Detroit Sports Extreme. Here is your new voice for Detroit Sports, Johnny Bakerstone.
Happy weekend greetings, Lions fans, and welcome to Detroit Sports Extreme. We are coming at you from outside of Gate A at sweltering State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, where it's 105 degrees and my nuts are roasting. And things only plan to sizzle spicier this Sunday as the Detroit Lions battle with the Arizona Cardinals. Before we dive into this Sunday's Week 3 showdown, let's quickly recap last week's bloodbath at Lambeau as the Lions lost 42-21 in Week 2 to the Green Bay Packers.
Week 2 recap.
The Lions entered Week 2 at Lambeau Field with the hopes of winning in Green Bay for just the fourth time in 30 games, but it was not to be. Despite scoring touchdowns on their first two possessions of the game to capture an early 14-3 lead, the Lions got clobbered 42-21 as the Packers piled up 488 total yards of offense, including a Week 2 high 259 rushing yards. The ass-kicking was highlighted by Packers running back Aaron Jones, who gashed the Lions to the tune of 236 total yards and 3 touchdowns. During the thrashing, Matthew Stafford threw an interception from his own 5-yard line for a touchdown, and no Lions skill position player had more than 62 yards. Rookie corner Jeff Okudah made his Lions debut, and Aaron Rodgers targeted his way 10 times for 7 catches and 121 yards, as Pro Football Focus scored Okudah with a team-worst 28.6 grade. The Lions meet up with the Packers again in Week 14 on December 13th, so mark that one down on your calendar as another day you can get passed out drunk.
Week 3 preview.
Since 1999, the Lions are a pathetic 1-8-1 in the Valley of the Sun at Arizona as the team continues to pile up losses in Mountain and Pacific time zones. Most recently, and probably most notably, the Lions built a 24-6 fourth quarter lead last year in Week 1 at Arizona, only to end up finishing the game in an overtime tie. Hopefully you had your perfect poop-up handy, because in the fourth quarter, as the Lions were trying to ice the game, facing a 3rd and 5 from their own 49-yard line with less than 3 minutes remaining, Matt Poop Trisha called a timeout mere milliseconds before Matthew Stafford snapped the ball and hit running back J.D. McKissick for a first down, which would have ended the game. My God! That triggered a snowball effect that sent the Lions to the depths of downward 3-12-1 hell. Turning now back to this season, the Lions enter Week 3 with their offense in total second-half shambles. Despite building a 23-6 lead in the third quarter against the Chicago Bears in Week 1, the Lions failed to score a single point in the fourth quarter and lost 27-23. Last week in Green Bay, the Lions scored on each of their first 2 drives, but only scored one more time the rest of the afternoon. Overall, the Motor City Kitties have only a total of 17 points of second-half offense, getting outscored 45-17. Ouch! That kind of production, or lack thereof, will surely not work this Sunday against Kyler Murray and company, who we will get to in just a couple of minutes. The loss of Kenny Golladay the first 2 weeks of the season has obviously been felt, and thankfully he will make his season debut this Sunday in the desert. Through the first 2 games of the season, Matthew Stafford has only completed 44 of his 75 pass attempts, and at 58.7%, Stafford ranks 31st in the NFL in QB completion percentage, 4th worst among active signal callers. I think I could down a 12-pack and complete more passes. Stafford's quarterback rating of 54 also ranks a dreadful 22nd in the NFL. It's been a rough start to the season for our franchise quarterback, whose average yearly salary is $27 million. If Stafford doesn't look vastly better this Sunday in Arizona with Kenny Golladay returning, it'll be time to sound the panic alarm. The Lions' rushing attack has been both hit and miss to begin the season, but mostly miss. Adrian Peterson did rush 14 times for 93 yards in the season opener, but only had 7 carries last week in Green Bay, and the rest of the, quote, committee has been barbaric. Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift have combined 23 rushes for just 66 yards, averaging a measly 2.8 yards per carry. It's Swift who I'm really concerned about, who has only 8 carries for 20 yards in his first 2 games combined, including dropping the potential game-winning touchdown against Chicago in Week 1. He did show some promise as a pass catcher last week, but Swift is a second-round draft pick that needs to pan out. We're seeing rookies like Clyde Edwards-Helaire of the Kansas City Chiefs and James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars rank in the top 10 of the NFL in rushing yards per game. Meanwhile, Swift can't even get past the line of scrimmage. James Robinson is an undrafted rookie, for Christ's sakes. Sure, it's only 2 games, but when the Lions haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since Reggie Bush in 2013, and before that Kevin Jones in 2004, I'm sick of the excuses, I'm sick of the waiting, and I'm sick of the booze binging every Sunday watching this putrid running attack. That's only 2 1,000-yard rushers in 16 seasons. You simply can't make this stuff up, Lions fans. Switching to the receiving game, the Lions pass catchers have been all over the map. Despite leading the team in Week 1 with 5 catches for 81 yards, Danny Amendola followed that up with a 7-target, 2-catch, 21-yard afternoon last week in Green Bay. As we mentioned on last week's show, counting on Amendola week to week is like playing Russian roulette with a gun that's half loaded. Some weeks he'll hit, and others he'll miss. I still think he's a fine slot receiver even at age 34, but he can't be heavily relied on week to week, and that has been the case so far this season without Kenny Golladay in the lineup. On the flip side, Marvin Jones did catch a touchdown last week, which was his first of the season. His 15 receiving touchdowns against the NFC North, dating back to when he joined the Lions in 2016, are the second most receiving touchdowns a player has had against his own division in that span. So we do have that going for us. Woo-hoo! Jones has turned 14 targets to just 78 yards, and quite honestly, I thought he'd step up more in Galladay's absence. After receiving a team-high 10 targets in his career debut in Week 1, rookie Quintez Cephus was barely heard from last week in Green Bay, catching 3 passes for 54 yards in garbage time, and he will most likely head back to bench duties this week in Arizona. Still, it was nice to see Cephus had at least a pulse while he was out there. Second-year tight end TJ Hawkinson, who I've been raving about since our opening show, leads the Lions in catches with 9 and receiving yards with 118. Hawkinson burned the Cardinals last season for 6 catches and 131 yards with 1 touchdown, so I expect him to keep the good times rolling this Sunday in the Grand Canyon State. The rest of the Lion tight ends have been non-existent, including Jesse James. Let's listen in on that 4-year, $22 million Jesse James touchdown hotline. Turning now to the defensive side of the ball, it has been a scene out of an Alfred Hitchcock horror film. The Lions are surrendering the 5th most total yards per game, the 3rd most rushing yards per game, and the 3rd most points per game. Their pass rush has been non-existent with only 2 sacks through the first 2 games of the season. Still without nickel corner Justin Coleman until week 6 at the earliest, the Lions defense did receive a glare of good news earlier this week when both offensive tackle Halepulavate Fatai and corner Desmond Trufant returned to practice. It was reported on Friday night, however, that Trufant would miss Sunday's game and most likely return in week 4, meaning more Jeff Okudah, so God help us. As we talked about earlier in the show, Okudah really struggled in his season debut last week in Green Bay and needs to step it up going forward. With a secondary that has given up big plays and big yards, and a defensive line that has got almost no pressure on opposing quarterbacks, this defense will struggle mightily against the Cardinals if they don't get their heads out of their asses. And fast.
Behind enemy lines, the Arizona Cardinals.
The Arizona Cardinals enter year 2 of the Cliff Kingsbury era brimming with optimism. Kingsbury bolted the college ranks at Texas Tech to take over as Cardinals head coach in 2018, replacing Steve Wilkes after a dismal 3-13 season. The hire came as a surprise to most, as Kingsbury was coming off 3 straight losing seasons at Texas Tech, leaving Lubbock with an overall record of 35-40 in 6 seasons. Despite already having first-round draft pick Josh Rosen on the roster, rumors surfaced from day one that Rosen wasn't a good fit for Kingsbury's pass-happy air raid offense. Kingsbury and the Cardinals promptly selected Kyler Murray with the first overall pick of the 2019 NFL Draft and traded Rosen a day later to the Miami Dolphins. Kingsbury was familiar with Murray from their time together at Texas A&M in 2015 and believed Murray was a perfect fit for his offensive scheme. Although the Cardinals finished just 5-10-1 last season, they really started to heat up in the second half of the season, averaging nearly 29 points a game, vastly improving in both quarterback rating and rushing yards per game the last 8 games of the season. In addition to Murray's progression from week to week, the Cardinals were aided by yet another trade with the Miami Dolphins, who dealt them running back Kenyon Drake in late October for a McDonald's Happy Meal. In 8 games with the Birds, Drake tallied 643 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Murray ended up taking 2019 Offensive Rookie of the Year honors, completing 64% of his passes for 3,722 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and an 87.4 passer rating, adding 544 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. What's maybe most impressive is Murray did all of this behind a very shaky offensive line that ranked 26th in pass protection per Football Outsiders. Despite year 1 of the air raid offense being mostly a success, the Cardinals weren't satisfied as during the offseason, they traded aging running back David Johnson and a 2nd and 4th round pick to the Houston Texans for stud wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, who was highly regarded as one of the best receivers in the NFL. The trade was seen as more lopsided than the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Texans GM coach Bill O'Brien and our very own Boob Quinn should get a room together. Hopkins has been a target hog so far this season, turning an NFL league-leading 35.7% target share to 22 catches for 219 yards and a touchdown. He surely doesn't project to slow down this Sunday against the Lions' porous secondary. Back to Murray, the second-year quarterback has led the Cardinals to a 2-0 record this season, including an impressive Week 1 win at San Francisco, leading all quarterbacks with 158 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. The Lions have had problems with scrambling quarterbacks for years, dating back to Fran Tarkenton in the 1970s, and will undoubtedly have no answers for Murray, Hopkins, or Kenyon Drake. Switching to defense, the Cardinals have improved on that side of the ball as well. Although they're middle of the pack in rushing yards allowed, Arizona ranks 7th best in passing yards allowed, including yielding a 57% pass completion percentage, second best in the NFL. This clearly is not good news for Matthew Stafford, who struggled mightily in completion percentage this season, though getting Kenny Golladay back this week will certainly help, we think. Arizona still has Patrick Peterson hanging around in the secondary, but Peterson is not the player he once was. On the injury front, the Cardinals are mostly healthy, though wide receiver Christian Kirk will miss this Sunday's game, and sliding in to presumably replace him is deep threat Anthony Isabella. Don't be surprised if Isabella catches a long pass or two against the Lions, because I won't be. How the Cardinals are favored in this game by only 5.5 seems criminal to me, but we will get to that later in the show. In any event, it should be another long afternoon for our beloved Honolulu Blue and Silver. We are going to take a quick 60-second commercial break here on Detroit Sports Extreme. Do not go anywhere.
Are you behind on your mortgage? Home or car repairs got you in a bind? Need a little extra cash before the holiday season? Or maybe you're just looking to hit the next score. If any of this sounds like you should try out ExtremeWiseGuys.com. ExtremeWiseGuys.com offers sports gambling advice across all major events, including horse racing, and features a full Vegas-style casino.
Thanks to ExtremeWiseGuys.com, I won $2 million last week betting against the Detroit Lions. Thanks, guys!
Every week, the Wise Guys offer their lock of the week to account holders. This Sunday, they're all in on the Arizona Cardinals to kick the Lions' ass. To get even more betting advice for this Sunday's NFL action, simply go to the website and create a free account using promo code PoopTricia. That's promo code PoopTricia. It's that easy.
In just 2 weeks, I won $800,000 by betting against the Lions in weeks 1 and 2. Thanks, Wise Guys.
Set up your free account today at ExtremeWiseGuys.com using promo code PoopTricia. That's promo code PoopTricia. ExtremeWiseGuys.com. Raise your stakes.
Welcome back to Detroit Sports Extreme. Here again is your new voice for Detroit Sports, Johnny Bakerstone.
Now it's time for Extreme Expressions, where we take calls from you, the listener.
Extreme Expressions.
As we alluded to on last week's show, you can message the Detroit Sports Extreme Facebook page with any thoughts you may have on Detroit sports. Don't feel like you have to hold back. Whatever is on your mind, just bring it. Starting with this week's show, the owner of the message I deem the spiciest will win a $25 Amazon gift card. So let's get it going with the returning caller, Boats, from the West Side.
Hey, Johnny. Boats from the West Side again. And that Okuda, that kid's gonna be alright. He's gonna be alright. I tell you what, Marquez Valdez-Scantling got away with a felony on him on his long catch. That's all I got to say.
Jesus, Boats, how many blue Kool-Aids deep are you this time? Making excuses for a third overall draft pick who just got his nuts roasted in his Lions debut. Yeah, you're right. I'm sure Okuda will be just fine. Let's now go to Harold from Roseville.
This Quinn, this Patricia are a bunch of cast-off losers. I've been a Lions fan since 1960. The Fords owned the team back then, and they own the team today. As long as these morons own the team, the Lions will never win diddly poop. I've seen one playoff win in 60 years. One. I'm tired of it. You gotta fire Bob Quinn. You gotta fire Matt Patricia. You gotta get new ownership. We need to start over.
Another case of a lifelong fan that's seen it all. I'm sure he's really going to enjoy the ass-kicking on Sunday. Let's now go to JT from Novi. JT!
Hey, Johnny, JT here, first time, long time. Big fan of you back on 1660 The Wave. I just got to say, everyone is just drinking the Kool-Aid out there about how we don't want to rush to judgment on Okuda. Well, guess what, man? Deion Sanders, Charles Woodson, they were taken after him in a similar position, and look at what we got. We got a big, steaming plate of dump, okay? This guy didn't play week 1, couldn't play week 2. Hell, he's not even starting right now. We're already making excuses for a top 3. Kill me. Burn it to the ground. Thanks, John.
Wow, now I loved all of the calls, but this one is my favorite and the spiciest. Great take, JT. For that, you will be awarded a $25 Amazon gift card. And burn it to the ground is right.
That was Extreme Expressions, where the voices of Detroit come out and bring it. Be sure to leave a message on the Detroit Sports Extreme Facebook page for a chance to be heard on next week's show and win a $25 Amazon gift card.
Now switching to baseball. The Detroit Tigers finish up the regular season on Sunday, currently sitting at 22-34. And despite the fact that they will be watching the playoffs from home, the Tigers actually showed some signs of life for the first time in years. The Tigers are coming off their second worst season of all time last year when they went 47-114, including losing a major league record-tying 59 home games. But this year, some of their young bats began to pop, as Willie Castro, Victor Reyes, and Jeimer Candelario all had nice seasons. Castro, the shortstop who was acquired in a 2018 trade for Leonis Martin, has come out of absolutely nowhere to hit .346 with 6 home runs and 23 RBIs. Reyes, a 2017 Rule 5 draft pick, is batting .285 with 14 RBIs and has made several spectacular catches in right field this summer. And how about the Candyman, who was batting .297 with 7 homers and 29 RBIs? Candelario looked absolutely lost at the plate the previous 2 seasons and was on the verge of getting released. It was also nice to see 37-year-old Miguel Cabrera slim down and stay mostly healthy, as Cabrera led the team in at-bats, home runs, and RBIs. It'll be interesting to see if one-year rentals Jonathan Scope, Austin Romine, and CJ Cron, who all enjoyed success at different parts of the season, will be re-signed in the offseason. But my guess is the cost-cutting Tigers will let them loose. Although their lineup is far from the 1927 Yankees, the obvious weakness of this team was pitching. My God, was it bad. The Tigers ranked second to last in ERA and 7th worst in WHIP. Amazingly, Spencer Turnbull was their best starting pitcher, yielding a 3.97 ERA and winning 4 games. Matthew Boyd, the team's alleged ace, was hot trash, winning just 2 games and posting an ERA close to 7. The Tigers should have traded Boyd when they had the chance, because now they couldn't even get a chalupa for him. Detroit called up number 7 overall pitching prospect Casey Mize and number 46 overall prospect Tariq Skubal in mid-August, and both really struggled. It was actually Skubal who looked better, and once he develops his slider, I think he'll become a very effective major league pitcher. I'm still going to give Mize more time, but 0 wins, a 6.99 ERA, and 1.48 WHIP doesn't inspire much confidence. The bullpen was an absolute disaster and might just be the worst in all of baseball. It was sad to see manager Ron Gardenhire abruptly retire, but with health issues and not managing a team that's going anywhere fast, it was simply time to go. It would have been real interesting to see how the Tigers would have fared in 2014 had they hired Gardenhire and not Brad Ausmus. Al Avila's biggest decisions this offseason will stem from what to do with Jonathan Scope, Austin Romine, and CJ Cron, and to shore up the pathetic pitching, in particular the bullpen. Taking over as Tigers general manager back in 2016, Avila, who's won roughly only 40% of his games, will have a lot of work to do this winter. Moving now to college football, it seems we will get to see Michigan and Michigan State football after all, as earlier this month, the Big Ten commissioning bitches finally got their heads out of their asses and voted yes to a Big Ten football restart. Starting in October, there will be 8 regular season games with daily rapid COVID-19 testing. For Michigan, quarterback Dylan McCaffrey, who was all hype during his stay with the Wolverines, transferred away, and next man up is Joe Milton, a 6'5", 243-pound junior who is getting comparisons to Cam Newton. Although that may seem a little far-fetched, Milton is a former 4-star prospect who received praise from both teammates and coaches throughout the offseason. And Milton is receiving rave reviews for his accuracy, mobility, and most notably, his absolute cannon of an arm. Hopefully, the practice reps translate to game action, because I've heard this tune before. For Michigan State, they start year 1 of the Mel Tucker regime after 13 seasons under Mark D'Antonio, who gave the school its first Rose Bowl title since 1988 in 2014. It's still far too early to tell how good he'll be, but Tucker was about as good of a hire as Michigan State could have hoped for, especially after their first choice, flaky Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell, fell through the cracks. Michigan and Michigan State square off against each other on October 31st this year, so it looks like more than just the kiddies will be treated on Halloween. Now it's time for Detroit Sports Extreme Michigan Moments, where we relive this week in Michigan sports history.
Detroit Sports Extreme presents Michigan Moments.
This Michigan moment brings us back to September 24th, 1994, in what will forever be known as the Miracle at Michigan. With the 4th-ranked Michigan Wolverines leading number 7 Colorado 26-21 with 6 seconds remaining, Buffalo's quarterback Cordell Stewart heaved a 70-yard Hail Mary in the air, only to have it purposely deflected in the end zone to wide receiver Brian Westbrook as time expired, giving Colorado a 1-point win. Ironically, the exact same play was called at the end of the first half, resulting in an interception. Michigan ended up losing 4 games in 1994, finishing 8-4, and earned a berth in the Holiday Bowl, defeating Colorado State 24-14. Gary Moeller still sadly sees the Hail Mary play unfold in his sleep every night.
Detroit Sports Extreme Poll Question.
Please be sure to check out the Detroit Sports Extreme Facebook page for our latest poll question, which is, which has been the bigger disappointment, the Matthew Stafford era of the Detroit Lions or Jim Harbaugh era of Michigan football? We will reveal the results on next week's show, as well as introduce the week's new question. Now it's time for the Extreme Sportsbook.
Extreme Sportsbook.
The Lions are 0-2 against the spread this year, have only won once in Arizona in 10 tries dating back to 1999, and are the 5th worst team in the NFL against the spread since 2009. Sunday, they're on the road against a red-hot Kyler Murray, and their defense will have no answers for him, DeAndre Hopkins, or Kenyon Drake. Let's improve on our 2-0 Extreme Sportsbook record by taking the Cardinals giving 5.5. As I said on last week's show previewing the Green Bay game, I'd be shocked if they stayed within a touchdown there, and I feel the same way this week in Arizona. Pound on the Cardinals, baby! Now for our Fantasy Football Extreme segment.
Fantasy Football
Extreme! As I mentioned on last week's show, each week I will pick an under-the-radar player from the Lions game that I think will have a nice fantasy football day. No, I'm not going to pick Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, or DeAndre Hopkins. We all know they're going to have big days. But if you've been a regular on the show, you know my love for TJ Hockenson. The Cardinals gave up the most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends last season, and I expect Hockenson to grow on his early season surge where he's led the Lions in catches and yards. If you're stuck at tight end, give Hockenson a long look. As a bonus, if you're desperate, and I mean desperate at wide receiver, give Cardinals wide receiver Anthony Isabella a look as well. Christian Kirk is out this Sunday, and Isabella should slide in as the Cardinals' number 2 receiver. He's a dangerous deep threat, and he will almost assuredly burn the Lions on a couple of passes and might just sneak into the end zone. Thanks for listening to Detroit Sports Extreme Lions Game Day. If you enjoyed the show, you can follow us a number of different ways. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher under the name Detroit Sports Extreme. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter under the name Detroit Sports Extreme. To follow me on Twitter, my handle is J_Bakerstone. We will release another edition of Fantasy Football Extreme late next week. God help us Sunday in the desert, and go Lions!